Hello and welcome to the Faces of Africa Pocket Edition, where we dissect and discuss the topics covered in our weekly documentary show, which takes you through the continent's history, cultures, and major issues through exploring great personalities. This week on Faces of Africa podcasts, we're still featuring Regina Mary in her documentary Born Survivor. This second part is quite interesting. We see a lot of the initiatives that she's put in place. We also see her meeting up with other girls, and we also get to see her show. My name is Fathiya Nur, and I have here
Kimani Mungai.
Hi, Kimani.
Hi, Fathiya.
This podcast still is a bit heavy.
For years, I've honestly believed there's something wrong with me. Now I don't have to feel like I'm a monster. I'm not so bad. I'm not ugly. I deserve what I deserve. I don't have to accept people treating me the way they want to. Every time someone came in my life, I thought they were doing me a favor.
I mean, Kim, the level of discrimination and stigma that's related to people who have albinism or people with albinism in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, is quite alarming.
Yeah.
And most of the time, this is because of cultural beliefs. You know, as Africans, we believe in things like superstition. Even in my community, superstitions are still there. But of course, we've seen this superstition when it comes to, people living with albinism. From your experience, maybe, what have you seen in terms of even stories when it comes to persons living with albinism?
What has been there lately or for the past 10 years on the news is the continuous hunting down of persons with albinism. This has been there. It's even on record that being hunted down, especially for their limbs and other body parts that are used in rituals by witch doctors.
And actually, the thinking behind it, which I find it interesting when it comes to the witch doctors, is that if they use the body parts of people with albinism and they put it in certain portions, then it's a source of, wealth and brings good luck. I don't know if that has ever been successful, really. I really don't believe in that. Do you?
Of course I don't. And especially given that it's unproven even in the first place, that getting the limbs or parts of a person with albinism will make you more wealthy, will make you succeed in business, will make you succeed in love and these other weird things. It's actually inhumane to regard persons with albinism as ingredients to weird potions.
Actually, you said ingredients. It sounds bad because it's our body parts, It's very distasteful.
This is a human being like you and me.
Honestly, the thought of it is disturbing. But just going back to the documentary, when you listen to Regina Mary, there's a part where she talks about where she was assaulted, and this person who assaulted her had HIV.
Yes.
And the thinking of this person was, if he violates her, if that's the word I could use, then it would cure him from HIV. What were your thoughts on that? Because for me, that was really disturbing.
First of all, it is indeed very disheartening that you'd have a person who's grown and thinking is very backward, saying that if they slept with a person of albinism, they'll get healed or get cured from HIV and AIDS. We know that's unproven, we know that's false, and thinking very backward that somebody will sit down and construe such a notion that is false.
Yeah.
And that such a person should be executed.
Oof, quite tough.
Spot. Yes.
Quite a tough.
Surely. You can't. First of all, it's so wrong on very many levels.
It's wrong. Actually, it gets my blood boiling.
Yes, it's
so infuriating because honestly, when you just even listen to how Regina talks, you can feel the pain in her voice. And even when she was talking to her mother, because this was the first time she was telling her mother about the rape that happened to her that
Yes,
time.
yes.
And again, it's a taboo sometimes in African culture to talk about these things, but I think it's totally unfair and unacceptable. But with regard to, talking about women in this particular case, a lot of the times it's actually considered, or people say that a woman who gives birth to a child who has albinism is considered caste or unclean, or even suspected to have been unfaithful to the husband. And that's really unfair, even for me as a woman, to hear something like this, because albinism really is just the lack of melanin, and it's something to do with the genes.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with a woman, and entirely putting the blame on her. I genuinely think that's unfair. What do you think?
Yeah, you've said it, you put it correctly, because I think the information has been there, maybe not well put, but the information is out there that it's a genetic factor, being a person with albinism.
But let's not forget about the men. Of course, there are men who are people living with albinism.
Yes.
I mean, yes, we've talked about women being sexually exploited, but what do you think when it comes to men? How are men affected? Because from my perspective, it's just a lot of discrimination in terms of just being isolated or not having an opportunity to go to a school where they can be able to be educated like the rest of the kids. And just not even when it comes to employment. I think that it's a bit of a struggle for people, especially men living with albinism. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, same thing I've been saying, or I've said earlier, is the people suffering from albinism are just a vulnerable lot that we need to take care of. Create more awareness to the public that people living with albinism are not abnormal. They're like me and you. It's just that maybe they have a paler skin complexion due to factors beyond them. And we see how we can incorporate them and include them in our daily lives just like any other person.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, another thing as we wrap up, because we've really talked about awareness, we're going to touch on that as we finish up. But one of the enemies, if I could call, for people living with albinism is the sun. Once they get sunburnt, that can really, really affect them. And most of the times that leads to some type of skin cancer. I think it's called melanoma.
Yes.
And actually it's actually called a silent killer, because not a lot of people talk about it. And sometimes it just starts with a small just like you'd think like it's a pimple on them. It could be different colors, black, brown, but by the time you realize that it's become a skin cancer, sometimes it's a bit too late. Regina Mary has told me that she has had 2 skin cancers and she didn't even know about it initially.
What?
Yeah. And that's because there's a lack of awareness when it comes to skin cancer with people living with albinism. How can we create that awareness, even as journalists?
First of all, it starts with our reporting, put more public service announcements out there, educating the public and informing them of the plight of this vulnerable section of society.
I mean, I think our message out of this documentary is it's important to just be kind and compassionate.
True.
And have empathy
Yes.
towards everyone, including people living with albinism.
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much, Kim, for your time. This was interesting and enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, you can watch this documentary on our CGTN platforms. On Sunday, it runs live at 12:30 East Africa time, 17:30 Beijing time, and 9:30 GMT. On Monday, it will be uploaded on our YouTube channels. See you next time.